What's going on, everyone? It's Corey here from the Breakevens, giving you another podcast today. Round 3 done and dusted. Last of the early buy rounds for now. We get a week off, and then we have the last two. It was a fun one, and a lot has come out of it the last probably 4 to 5 hours, which I'll go through a little bit. But before we get into the podcast, don't forget you can hit us up on our socials. So on Twitter/X at Breakevens Pod, we post everything on there, always interacting. On Facebook, search the Breakevens. You'll see our logo there. All links and all the what they called the Super Coach match results I post on there as the stories. So every time a game is finished and the post scaling is done, I get a picture of all the Super Coach scores and I chuck it up there for everyone to see. So make sure you follow us there on Facebook, the Breakevens. Over here on YouTube, obviously, the Breakevens, where we do our weekly podcast. I'm looking to get into YouTube Shorts again, which got a lot of love last year. I'm looking to do that. And lastly, we have just joined on Instagram. So what I'm going to do there is just post my team progress and player stats, I guess, of each round. So if someone goes massive like Max GAWN did this week, I'm looking to do a graphic of his Super Coach points and a couple of his stats that made him get to that. So something to look forward to. You can find us at the Breakevens. So make sure you go give us a follow, like, subscribe on all those social media platforms. I've got a lot installed that I'm looking to work on. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, make sure you reach out to us because it does help. Especially I'm putting a lot of effort into everything and trying to get it all back up and running after the small hiatus. So that slight appreciation of the work I'm putting in is it goes a long way. So make sure you follow, like, subscribe on all of those platforms. All right, so round 3, let's get into the top 5 scorers of the round. So coming in at number 1, I just stated his name a couple seconds ago. That was Max GAWN, 177, went absolutely ballistic. Wish I had him captain. For those who had him vice captain or captain, congratulations, well done. You definitely got one up on the competition there. Second was Nick Vlostian with 167. Blokes everywhere, taking all the kick-ins. Had a massive game. I think he had 13 marks. So he went massive there. James Warple, 150. The Warpedo had a one of his best games for the Hawks. Can he keep that up with John Newcomb starting a bit slow? Who knows? But a big 150 from the Warpedo. Isaac Heaney here again at number 4 with 148. Just keeps continuing his form. Plays the Eagles this week, so he's probably going to be there. On the next podcast in the top 5. And last one was talking about winding down, winding back the clock. Dyson Heppel, 139 Super Coach points. Didn't watch the game, but I just watched his Super Coach score going up and up. So was a very strange one, and I wasn't expecting to say his name out here for the top 5 scores of any round. So there you have it. Now, I said at the start there was a few things that have come out the last 5 to 6 hours, some news. So I'm just quickly going to run through that now. First one being Ollie Wines is out for round 4 with a hamstring strain. Not much has come out about how severe it is. It's just he's not in this week. but depending on how bad, could be a couple more. So if you have Ollie Wines, it's probably a trade this week, but I'll get into that soon. Sticking with Port Adelaide, you got Wines out, but you got Jason Horne-Francis confirmed back in. So that's going to affect Butters and Rosie. We also had Marty Hall. He's out for 3 to 4 weeks with a thumb injury, which isn't great because our defense is starting to turn into a shambles, especially those rookies. If you're like me and you have a Zach Reed or a Gibkiss or a Caulfield and you're holding out for, Marty Hall going down isn't going to help at all. Taylor Adams will have 1 or 2 more weeks in the Sandful, which is good for those holding James Jordan and for Heppel owners, but I don't think it'll affect Heaney. Heaney owners won't affect Heaney too much. And last one is Shrek Darcy. I saw one saying that he's a chance to play this week, but it has come out officially from Freo that he is not out for this. He's out for this week and could be returning next week, which is good for us Luke Jackson owners. I think that was all that I remember seeing. Liam Baker, they challenged the 1 week and he didn't win, so he's still got a week off. So that's all the news that's come out today. If I did miss something, I do apologize. I was tweeting like crazy. Just retweeting all the information. So if you're unsure, or if I've missed any, go to our Twitter, which is at the Breakevens Pod, and it'll all be there. Check our timeline, and I'll have them all there. So there we go. So now let's get into the trade out targets. I've got a few here. A couple have been on the last 2 previous pods, but it's just really, if anyone has held on to them, it's time to get rid of them. So things have sort of changed with this structure. Seeing that we got our first price change for majority of the AFL and the teams that didn't play round 0. So it's the first price change. So going forward, we'll have the trade out options if there's any bubble boys. So any rookies that have played 2 games, and then our trade targets and captaincy to end. So we're here for the trade outs, and I've gone via price. So it's not in any particular order, this one. It is just I searched highest price and I went down and selected the players from there. So number 1 is LDU Luke Davies-Uniacke coming in at 602k. He lost 32k last week because he's averaging 97.7. He has a break even of 173, which means he's projected to lose 32k this week. Those who are big on LDU, which I was for most of pre-season, fortunately I didn't start him, but for those who did, will be pretty disappointed. He's just not having the impact that you had hoped, and I don't know if that's because Tom Powell's come in sharing the same, well, roughly the same amount of CBAs. I think there's only a 1% difference. And he's getting a bit more of the ball, having a bit more of an impact. I'm not exactly sure what's there, but it is something is affecting LDU's output. So I think if you have LDU and you're a bit, do I not? I think he's a trade out option now. He's still 600k. So depending on what trades you have to make, how much money you have in the kitty, you can go down to a Took Miller, Jack Steele type Steele, or you can go up to a Butters or hopefully a Tom Green, who's just come off their buys. So yeah, for me, LDU is a trade out Next is Jordan Dawson, 590k. He's lost 57k because he's averaging 82. He has a break even of 174, and he's similar to LDU. He's projected to lose 32k this week, which will put him at 558 ish. The big surprise here is Jordan Dawson is getting the most CBAs at Adelaide, more than Laird. I think slightly more than Crouch. If not, Crouch is actually just pipped him, but he's definitely getting more CBAs than what Laird is. And the scoring's just not there. He's uncharacteristically not finding teammates when he kicks the ball. And there's a lot of sideways handballs going backwards. There's not that real drive going forward that we've seen. He's they're one of their better kicks in the team, and they usually want the ball in his hands, but at the moment it's just not working. And that's showed with his super coach scoring output averaging 80-82. That's back at Sydney before he got that nice half back role, when he was strictly just playing as a wing, that 82 average. So for those who have started him, I've got him in a few draft leagues, and I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to trade him out in a draft league because he has the potential to go huge. But I think it is time to jump ship for now. And if he does turn around and starts to average 115 to 120 in the back end, maybe after his team's bye, then maybe look to trade him back in. But I think for now he's probably a trade out. He's gonna lose another 32k if he doesn't hit 174, and if he goes at I think he's projected to go like 119 or something. So if he doesn't even hit 119, he could lose more, could lose close to 45, which is no bueno. So Jordan Dawson is a trade out option. Next one is Jai Newcomb, 504k. He has lost 45k already, and he's averaging 72. He now has a break even of 139, and he's projected to lose 22k this week, which means he'll go under 500k. Again, haven't watched too many Hawthorn games, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but similar to Dawson and LDU, the impact's not there. I don't know if it's tackling pressure. I don't know if it's targets, but for those who were hoping for him to be that breakout contender, you're definitely not getting your money's worth. And to go under 500k puts it in a tough price range. So you have to get rid of Jai Newcomb now, and potentially look at him for next year. See if this was just a one-off, and next year he can find it back. But I think for 2024, I think he is not an option unless you're playing draft, and you could use him for, I guess, some trade fodder, or potentially someone who could win you games here and there. But for the whole Jai Newcomb is not doing it, and again, is someone that you have to look to trading out, in my opinion. Next one is a man I got rid of last week, and I thought I was thinking about doing it 2 weeks ago, but decided against it. That's Jaden Short, 493k. He's lost 57k this year so far, averaging 85.5. With a break even 159 this week, he's projected to go down another 31k, which is getting close to 450k. Now that is red alarm going off there. A few factors. You got Nick Vlostian taking all the kick-ins, basically all of them. And then I'm pretty sure Short is second on the list, but he only took 2 or 3 on the weekend, where I believe Vlostian took 6 kick-ins. So that's not on his pros list. You've got Daniel Rioli looking at being and taking his role as that distributor out of defense. They look to be going to Rioli to, get the ball going, and for him to make that 45 kick, or that long kick that helps start the counter attack. And Jaden Short seems to be getting stuck on the wing a lot, which we know Jaden Short on the wing is not super coach friendly. So hopefully for his sake that he can get that roll back. But for now, it's not there. I don't think he averages 95 unless things change. He's going to lose money at a quick rate. It's time to get rid of Jaden Short. I did it last week. Should have done it 2 weeks ago, but I gave him another chance. So if you still have Jaden Short, and you need to get rid of him now. As I stated before, Ollie Wines is out for round 4, and he is also a trade out option. I was looking at possibly using my third boost this week, which I'll get into my side very soon. Looking to trade him out, and then with the hamstring strain, it's basically confirmed that I'm going to use my third boost. Spoiler. But he comes in at 474k, which means he's made 10k. And he's averaging 96.3. So I took a punt on Wines, hoping he could go 105, and I've gotten solid 90s, which has been frustrating. I was saying to someone the other day up after the Port game, he was on 101 with 10 minutes to go in the last quarter, and he finished on 97. He didn't touch the ball. He didn't give away any free kicks, just because he did nothing for the last 10 minutes when there was a close-ish game. He got downscaled because he had no impact when it counted. So he does have a break even of 77, which means he's projected to go up 5k next time he plays. But all seriousness, he's the trade out. If you have to use a boost, I think now's the right time. You can go up to a Took Miller or a Jack Steele. If you have, the trades, because there's a lot of injuries. As I said at the start, there was 3 to 4 injuries at the start, which a couple players might be in our sides, and we have to get rid of them because we can't hold them for that long. So definitely a trade out if you can, because you're gonna have to field a rookie. So next one is Zack Fisher, coming out 380k, which means he's made just over 1k, and he's averaging 73.7. With a break even of 47 this week, he's projected to go up 10k, which is good. But we got Zack Fisher as that half-back man who we thought could go 95 plus, and unfortunately is doing what he did at Carlton. Is he'd get the ball and he'd miss teammates. Poor disposal efficiency, and I think Sheasel mainly playing that half-back role has affected him, where in the practice games, Sheasel was more that midfield pushing forward type, and Fisher got the rub of the green and was looking great. But then Clarkson put Sheasel back and basically made Sheasel the number one man, and then McKercher's basically taken the second spot. So Zack Fisher gets the ball here and there and doesn't have much impact that we thought he was going to. So again, it's another failed pick, one that I had, and it's time to move him on. I believe Tom Powell is, I think, 4k cheaper, so you can go straight down the Powell if you weren't able to get him last week, like I was, and I think that's a easy swap. Next is James Jordan coming at 344k. He's made 69k, which is great, averaging 79.5. He's got a break even of 44 and is projected to go up 11k. Is playing West Coast, which is a big thing. So I'm going to preface this now. He isn't an essential trade out. Most of these guys are essential trade out players, but he's one who I don't think is essential, seeing that he is playing West Coast. So Adams is still out for 1 to 2 weeks, so he still has that wing role. We'll still see some CBAs, but I can see a reason to trade him. We're getting stuck with these awkward scores, and he doesn't have much more money to make. I can see him maybe getting to 380 just after his buy, but do you really want to hold him for that long? Unless he goes 120, there's not going to be that big of a price jump. So you're looking at 10, like, what is it this week? If he scores like a 70, he's going up 11k, and then it'll be like 9k, then 4k, then 1k. Is that really worth holding someone like that, or can you go up 40k to a Tom Powell who's expected to make, I think, 60k potentially? So he has the role. He usually starts slow and then works into the game, and usually averages around that 75 to 80 mark. So if you have the luxury, you can trade him. If not, you can hold him for one more week. Then I'm pretty sure they might have their buy in round 5. So you definitely trade him out then. But I can see a reason for trading him this week. Again, it's not essential, but if you have the luxury, you can definitely do so. Someone else who is a luxury trade out is Nat Fife, in my opinion. 319k. He's made 36k for us, averaging 80.3. With a break even of 45, he's projected to go up 5k. He has the role. He has the midfield CBAs. The big difference with Fife is he's just handballing a lot more than kicking. A couple of years ago, you'd see him, run and kick the ball, get those meters gained, try and impact via foot. Where now he's that get the ball at ground, handball out, start the handball chain, and get the ball moving forward. So it's a slight change to what we were expecting. Nat Fife in midfield, we think 100 plus. Fortunately, we're not getting that. And there is always the chance that he's going to be managed. Like in round 2, he was subbed off, and that wasn't because he was injured. He had a bit of back tightness, and they didn't want to risk him. And he was managed, and Longmuir has come out and said he will be managed throughout the season. So if that's managed minutes and subbed off, or a week here, a week there, he will be dropped just for a bit of a rest. Who knows? But I can see him going over 100 very soon. I think he's close. Something's going to click, and he's going to turn it on. He's going to go 100. He's going to bump up that cash gen just a little bit. We need him for a few more weeks. Hopefully get to round 6, round 7. Hopefully he's up around 350 plus K. That's what we need him to do, and then we can swap him. So like Jordan, he isn't an essential trade out. He's someone you can look at. But he has the role. He's going to score points. I think there's a big one coming. So if you have the luxury, if you don't have a Jordan, if you have that luxury, you can trade him out to a Tom Powell. Or if you have enough cash, you can go up to a Flanders potentially. But all depends on your structure. and your team and what you can do, I wouldn't go out of my way to trade him out, is basically what I'm saying. Next is Jack Billings. He is a trade out. No matter what people want to say, he is a trade out. 305K. He's made 62K for us, which is great. 60.3 average with a break even of 64. He's projected to lose 4K. Didn't get anywhere near it for 3/4 on the weekend, and then got a little bit of junk time and scraped up to, I think it was 54 or something. Don't know how he got there. He was near the ball. He just wasn't getting the ball. And if you're like me and you jumped on him after he went 100, because you're like, okay, we're not expecting 100 each week, but if he can go 80, he can get up to 400K for us pretty quickly. Then he'll be a great trade out option. Hasn't happened. Has been pretty disappointing. And now it's time to trade him out, which means if you're like me, you've wasted 2 trades, because I didn't start with him. I traded him in, and now I've got to trade him back out. So there's nothing else I can really say. He's a sub risk. You need to trade Jack Billings out this week. Next is his teammate Caleb Windsor, 233K. He's made 52K for us, averaging 56.5 with a break even of 37, and he's projected to go up 7K. Again, sub risk, similar to Billings. They like him. They rate him as a wingman. He hasn't done anything poorly. Like, he kicked a great goal for his first goal on the weekend. He's looked good. He just hasn't got that I guess super coach friendly role. He's playing the wing. It's a bit inconsistent. It doesn't look to be the attacking wing. You got Ed Langdon on the other side, which they use a lot. And he is a great option to downgrade to one of the rookies in the forward line. If I had to choose between Billings and Windsor, I would keep Windsor, honestly. I think he's less of a sub risk than Billings. Obviously, Billings has the highest ceiling, as he has gone 100. But I don't know if we'll see that for a while. And depending on what you need to do, I think you choose that. If you need to go down and you have Windsor, I'd probably go Windsor down. But if you had to go up, I'd go Billings up. Simple as that. So I think, unfortunately, Windsor is a trade out option. And last one is not an essential. And people will probably think, well, why is this guy even on the list? He's still got money to make. And I'll tell you why. So the last one is Alex Sexton, 182K. He's made 49K for us, averaging 61. He has a break even of -5, and he's projected to go up another 23K, which will see him go over 210 or closer to 210. Now, why is he a trade out? Well, obviously they had the bye last week, so didn't play, so that's fine. But the week before that, at halftime, he was pushed into the forward line, which, unless he kicks 5 goals, he's not going to score very well. So that's why I think he could be a trade out option. Has he lost his halfback role? Has he turned it over too much, and Dimmer's gone, well, you're actually hurting us rather than helping us. So halfway through this game, we're going to chuck you forward and see what you can do. So I think personally you wait on Sexton, especially this week. I think you do wait this week at -5 break even, see what his role is, because no matter what, unless he gets knocked out after giving away 2 free kicks, he's going to go up in money. He's most likely going to get over 200K. So have a look at him, see what his role is, and then assess next week. But if you only need 60K to get someone, you can go a Sexton down to a Darcy or a Manor type of player. So keep an eye on him. He's not an essential trade out, but he's one that you can sort of think about if you need that extra money. But he will go up in cash this week, so probably not, but just something to think about, especially going forward. All right, next up is the Bubble Boys, who has played 2 games and is on the bubble, which, if you don't know what that means, is, as we know, when a player plays 2 games, when they play their third game, that's when they start to make money. So the first 2 games is a sort of look at their role, look at their potential, and then try and bring them in before they play that third game, because that could most likely, in 99 out of 100 cases, they're going to be at their lowest potential price, and they will go up. So I have 4 Bubble Boys this week. Now, I think there was about 4 or 5 more that have played 2 games, but I don't think that they are valid options. This is due to their either a sub risk if that starters the sub, or be subbed out. Their job security is low, so they are that fringe player, so they might be out and then they might come in as sub. Or their scoring potential is low, and for their price, they're not going to be great cash cow options. For an example, Matt Taberner would be one. It's 170K, played 2 games, averaging 50. I think at 170K, you want a bit more than a score of 50. You'd be looking more at an average of 75, and it's just not there. So I don't think he's like an option. So that's why he hasn't made the list. And a big reason why I think you should try to avoid. So let's get into the Bubble Boys. I have put these in order of my favorite Bubble Boy to my least favorite out of the 4. Again, they're all options, especially this week. So they're all people you should look to get in if you can. But I've just put them from 1 to 4. So coming in at number 1, and it's going to be no surprise, is Sam Darcy from the Western Bulldogs. 123K forward, averaging 81.5. So he went 108, I think, in his first game, and then just went 54 or 55. He's got a break even of negative 92, and he's projected to score 42, which if he scores 42 on the dot, he's going to go up 61K. So he's going to go basically up to that Alex Sexton price in the one game. So his role is basically the second ruck. So he's starting forward or starting on the bench, and then when he comes on, he goes forward as a tall option down there alongside Norton and Jamara Ugle-Hagan. And then when English needs a rest, they chuck him in as second ruck. So I believe he got 11 hit outs on the weekend. He kicked the goal, got 10 to 12 possessions. So he has the potential to score well with this role. The only downside to Darcy is his coach is Bevo, who subbed out Tom Liberatore on the weekend, which a lot of people weren't happy with. But we know what Bevo can produce, and that's some very strange decisions. The good thing with Darcy, though, is he's not going to start as sub. So, there's no point subbing on a guy at 200K later in the game. It's not going to do much. So he's always going to be subbed out, if anything. And in saying this, he's in the side for now, but Rory Lobb, so that's who he replaced in the side, was Rory Lobb. He's come out the last 2 weeks, scored Well, he's kicked 9 goals and has looked really good in the VFL. So potentially Sam Darcy could be dropped this week. If I was the coach of the Bulldogs, I'd look at Darcy as the future and try and get him as much exposure as he can. As his second year in the system, because last year it was very injury affected, and I think he only played a couple games, or maybe didn't play at all. I think he might have played one game. Anyway, that's irrelevant, but he is their future to take over from English. If English leaves, rumors maybe leaving, or if he gets injured, you got Darcy there as the next best option. So I would play Darcy over Lobb. I think Darcy even looks the better AFL player. Anyone in the AFL can go to VFL or the Resies and tear it up, right? Anyone can do it. But in the AFL, Darcy's looked comfortable. He is a threat. If he kicks a couple goals a game, you're going to see him go 75. So I think there's plenty of money to be made. Just look out for Bevo, because he could destroy all of our sides. So Sam Darcy comes in as number one bubble boy for me. Number 2 is Tom Brown from Richmond, coming out 154k as a defender, averaging 61.5. With a break even of 35, he's projected to go 66 this week, which if he does, it makes 46k, which means he'll be bang on 200k. Richmond have injuries in their back line. Grimes was out. Gibkiss is gone for the season. Who else went down last week? Someone else went down last week that is completely lost my train of thought. But they have injuries in their defense. So I think at the moment he has good job security and he's averaging 61. So he's going to make you 100k if he continues this, obviously. You've had Bolter, who's just gone down with an injury as well. So if Dusty comes back and that they were looking to move Bolter back, that probably would have pushed Tom Brown out. Unfortunately, I do think he is the one guy in their defense who could be pushed out. But I think with all these injuries, especially to key position players, and the way Vloshun's playing, they probably won't want him to be too much of a key defender. I think Tom Brown has scope to average you 60 to 65, which again, he'll probably go up to 250k. The only downside is if people come back, obviously, and they do have the round 6 bye. So you'll be bringing them in for two rounds and then he's out, which isn't great if you have a Hoare, Caulfield, Reed, or Gibkiss still. But it gives you that 2 weeks, and potentially we might get another defensive rookie on the bubble by then. If not, well then being a buy round, it's best 18 anyway, so it wouldn't affect you too much. But I think if you're looking to get rid of a defensive rookie, I think Tom Brown is the best option in defense this week. And that's why he comes in at number 2. Number 3 is the other defensive option in Joshua Draper from Freo, 123k. As I said, defender, averaging 51.5. Has a break even of negative 32 and is projected to go 34, which if he hits 34, he goes up 30k. Now, pretty similar to Brown in the break evens projection and money made. The only difference is it's a 10-point less output at this stage. His job security is good due to key defensive injuries as well. So he was brought in because they had a few people go down. He's done a great job so far. Looks to be a player of the future, and looks to have a spot there until those guys come back, which I think is in possibly 4+ weeks. I'm not exactly sure on what the timeframes are for them, but he's doing a job at the moment. I don't think he'll be dropped for lack of effort or lack of output. He's doing a great job. Being the slightly lower price than Tom Brown, he is going to make money faster, in a sense, but that output isn't there. So how much, it will depend on the magic number and what he actually averages. That's why I've put him slightly just below Tom Brown. That's why he comes in at number 3, but I think he could be a great option to cover for those 2 bye games coming up in round 5 and 6, and it's best 18, so he might not even get his score, but he's there to cover, and hopefully he has one breakout game and starts to get that cash gen flowing. So he comes in at number 3. And the last one is Sean Manor, 117k mid forward from Geelong, who's averaging 43. He's got a break even of -19, and he's projected to go 30 this week, which is a projection of 22k of an increase in his price. It's frustrating because he has the scoring potential. He finds the ball, they play him around the ball. There was, I think it was 2 weeks ago, it was basically their best mid up to halfway through the second quarter. He was everywhere. He was getting the ball like crazy. And then he went missing. And was he subbed out? He might not have been subbed out, but he was definitely subbed out last week, I'm pretty sure, or was named the sub. So he's a big sub risk, but he has the scoring potential. It's just, can he hold his spot? He's that 22nd, 23rd fringe player. They got O'Sheen Mullen in defense at the moment, who's playing well. They got Dempsey, who's probably been their best rookie player. They rate Jai Clark, so I don't think he's going to go. So it's really, Manor has to try and break into the team. Now, I think he possibly can. At 117k, he doesn't have to average a crazy amount. He only has to go at about a 52. If he goes at a 52, he's going to get us up to 250, 300k, which is all we need from him. And it's the reason why I've got him at number 4, because I feel like all the other bubble boys that I haven't named, I don't think that they have the scoring potential that what he does. And if he does find himself in, he could score very well, and he could become a great cash cow for us. So that's why I've put him on the list. It is a big risk, as I've said. He's that fringe player. He's got the talent. He's already shown how good he can be. He just needs to get that confidence and just get that comfortable feeling and get an actual good chance to show that he can do it for 4 quarters. So Sean Manor comes in at number 4, is a riskier option. Especially mid forward, you can move a few people around, so you have Sam Darcy there, who you can get in the forward line, who I'd prefer to go over him. But really, if Darcy's dropped this week and Manor's named not the sub, I think Manor could be a great option. Next up is the trade targets, the people that you want to look to get in this week. So we're going to start off with again, I'm gonna just say I did this in highest price order, so it's not who I think is the best in that order. It's just highest price down. So first is Tom Green, 653k mid, averaging 140.3 at the moment with a break even of 85. He's projected to go 161 apparently this week, which would see him go up 34k and be looking at that 680 to 690 range, which would make it pretty hard to get. So he's fresh off the bye. He looks to be a top 6 to 8 midfielder in 2024. I've said 6 to 8 because I don't think he can continue averaging 140. I think GWS had a softer run early on up to their first bye. And usually the first month and a little bit, teams stick to their systems. And then when or if things start to not pan out, that's when they might start to make someone accountable for a gun on the other team and maybe potentially tag. So I don't think he can keep up 140. Definitely not. It'll be a record-breaking season if he did. I definitely think he can go 120 though. So he's definitely top 6. I just put top 8 just to be safe. So, in a couple months' time, you're not going, yeah, he's not even top 8. So I think he is a must get this week anyway. As I said, if he gets to 680, 690, he's going to be pretty hard to be able to pick up unless, a Bont or someone goes down with a big injury. So Tom Green is a big trade target this week. Next is Touk Miller, 572k midfielder, averaging 122.7 with a break even of 76. He's projected to go 102, which means he'll go up a projection of 11k. Like Green, he's fresh off his bye, but he looks to be back to his best and could be a great M8 option come season's end. And because he's at a cheaper valued price, I value that a lot more. So we've seen Touk before. If he's fit and firing with the right role, he can go 120 plus. He's done it for 2 seasons. Got injured last season, had a bit of a downer, but looks great this year. Gold Coast are going with the 4 main midfielders, Rowell, Anderson, Miller, and Flanders. They're the only ones really getting those CBA times. And he's that endurance machine, running, carrying. They're getting the ball in his hands because he's great on that spread. So definitely someone to look at, especially if you have a Wines and you can go up to Touk. It's about an 80k sort of range that you are looking to do that. But if you can do that, you can potentially get an M8 going 115 at the end of the season and be a bit of a pod. So Touk Miller is a trade-in target for mine. Next is Nick Vlostian, 560k defender, averaging 122.5. He's got a break even of 83 and projected to go 119, which if he does that is projected to go up 16k. I sort of spoke on him a little bit earlier, but he's predominantly on kick-ins and he's marking everything at the moment. As I said, he had 13 marks on the weekend, which is insane. He looks to have taken over that Jaden short role, as in, kicking in and getting that ball rolling. The only problem is he does have the round 6 bye, so you're basically bringing him in this week and for next week, and then you miss out on a primo score. Do I think he can keep up 120? No. I think with the way he started, he could average 100. But I think you're looking, that more 95 to 100 average. At some point, he might get some attention. He's going to have his low games. He's got that ceiling, but he's going to have those low games, which is going to even it out. but if you don't think that's going to happen, he'd be a great pod, especially the way he's going at the moment. Just remember, you don't get his previous points; you only get the ones going forward. But seeing that Richmond are basically hopeless, so for all the Tigers fans out there, but it's going to be a long season. Even though you did just beat Sydney, but it is going to be a long season. You're going to see a lot of ball in your back line. So Vloshton's there to take those marks, and if you're inaccurate, he's going to have plenty of kick in. So he's got easy points there to be had. Just can he keep it up? I'm not sure. But if you like what you see, definitely you could jump on him. Next is Jack Steele, 557 midfielder, 557k midfielder, averaging 121.7. He's got a break even of 73. He's projected to go 101. And if he does, see him go up 12k in price. He's similar to Took in the sense that he looks to be back to his best. And I think he can go 115 plus. Potentially even stay around that 120 mark, but I think 115 is a bit more realistic. He's got that rollback. We were unsure what Ross Lyon would do. Would he have him a bit more defensive, possibly tagging? But it's basically the Jack Steele show in the midfield. Get him the ball as much as you can. He spreads. He tries to push forward. He's doing all the right things. He comes in at a cheaper price to Took. So if you don't have enough to get Took from a Wines type, you can get Steele for about 30k cheaper, which is great. And he was definitely someone I looked at to potentially bring in. But for now, I have more hope in others, aka Took, to be a bit more consistent. But I think you can't go wrong with Jack Steele as a trade-in option, especially if he goes 115. Could be a good M8, similar to Took. So definitely keep an eye on him. He's not going to go up too much more unless he goes with a few crazy games in a row. So definitely look at Jack Steele for a target. Next is Lockie Whitfield at 544k as a defender, averaging 116.7. It's got a break even of 73 as well, projected 101 and to go up 12k as well. Pretty similar to Jack Steele there. He's fresh off his bye and has been put back into that halfback role where we have seen him average over 100 a couple times before. And they were seasons without injuries. He's had a few in the high 90s that had a few injury infected games where if you take those injuries out, he's actually averaging 100. He looks to be a top 6 to 8 potential in defense, and definitely someone to look to go up to, especially if you want to get rid of Jaden Short and you can't jump on a Sheasel or a Houston or a Stewart type player. Lockie Whitfield this week would be a great option. I think he's going to go 105 at a minimum, which is top 6. So definitely look to him if you want to go a little bit different and just slightly outside of the box. I think he's still well owned. So it's not a massive pod, but it is a difference, and we know he can score well in this role. Next is Sam Flanders, 528k mid forward, averaging 118 at the moment. He's another one with a break even to 73, and he's projected to go 116, which if he does so, he goes up another 19k. He's another one who's fresh off his bye, and he looks to be locked in to be one of the top 3 forward premiums this year. The other two being Isaac Heaney and at the moment Tom Powell. I think the Tom Powell has the potential to be top 3, but Flanders is definitely top 2. He has a role where he sees plenty of CBAs. As I said before, Gold Coast only have the 4 rotating mids at this stage, so he's getting plenty of those. And when he's resting forward, he pushes straight up to the ball anyway as that 5th midfielder. So I can see him going close to that 100 mark, maybe even slightly more, maybe 105, but it wouldn't be too much more than that. But we saw at the end of last season what he can do. He's started that this season. He's carried that on. So he's had his bye. And I think if you're tossing up between Miller and Flanders, I think Flanders would be great, especially if you have him in that midfield, because we're going to have some DPP changes soon. So you could always just flip him forward and you could do trades that way. So he has that nice flexibility. So probably Flanders over Took, but if you already have Flanders, then obviously if you can get Took, he's probably the better Gold Coast option this week. Next is Jeremy McGovern, 518k defender, averaging 124.3, as a break even of 33, projected to go 103 Supercoach points. And if he does that, he'll go up another 32k. It's pretty hard to ignore a bloke who's averaging 124. As we know, he marks everything and has the scope to score well. He's done it for years and years. He's just gotten injured. And has had to be a bit more accountable at times over the last few seasons. He's looking fit at the moment, and we know West Coast, they're probably the worst team in the AFL this season again. So there's going to be plenty of ball down there all the time, and teams are just kicking it to him. Bulldogs at times last week were just kicking the ball to McGovern, and then at one point they had to go, well, hang on, we can't keep doing this, and they had to try and find a different avenue. Some teams won't do that, and they'll just keep bombing the ball to Jerry McGovern, and then you're going to see him score 140. It's as simple as that. The only knock I have on McGovern is his injury history. He always finds a niggle. You'll see him out for 3 to 4 weeks here, 3 to 4 weeks there. So definitely a riskier option, definitely a pod option. But I would say proceed with caution. But if you want to make a bit of a statement, you can definitely jump on him. Next one is Dane Zorko. This is a big pod. 496k mid forward, averaging 103.3 at the moment. He's got a break even of 79 and projected to go 115 this week, which would see him go up 16k. So now hear me out. He looks to have a great roll down back. We've seen the last 2 games. He's most likely covering for Gideon Coleman at the moment, and has shown that he can still score well. With 103 average at the moment, you could, and I want to emphasize he could average 95 in our forward lines, which is insane because he's what, 32, 33, 34, one of those. He's definitely over 30. And he's getting on, but we've seen Pendles be able to do it. We saw Heppel on the weekend be able to do it. These older guys can go onto the halfback and still score well. Obviously, being older, he has the potential to be a sub risk and managed. And due to his age, he could go down with an injury. We saw the last year and a half to 2 years, he was sort of managing a foot problem, which we saw him subbed out a lot at the start of last season. Still scored well at the start of last season, but then those injuries hit, and then his role sort of changed. He looks to be good at the moment, and definitely probably the biggest pod pick that I'm going to say today. Just in the fact people are going to write him off. But he's got a good role at the moment. He's averaging well. As a forward, you only need a 95 average, usually be top 6 to 8. He's going at 103. Not many people are going to jump on him, so he's the ultimate pod, but he also becomes the ultimate risk. So tread very carefully but it could be a great pod if it works out. If you want to take that risk, go for it. But just know that there is injury history there, and with his age, he could be subbed the ultimate pod. Next is a man that I've mentioned a couple of times, Tom Powell, 375k as a forward, averaging 105.3. He's projected to go negative. He's got a break even of -6, and he's projected to go 82. Which, if he does that, he will go up 40k and be over 400k. Now, he's 120k cheaper than Dane Zorgo, who I just spoke about. So, ultimately, if you're looking to get someone in the forward line, you already have Flanders and Heaney, you'd probably go Tom Powell over Zorko just because safety in numbers. But if you have Powell, you have your Flanders and your Heaneys, that's when Zorko becomes that option. But if it comes down to Powell or Zorko, it's Powell every time. He looks to be the real deal and looks to have that mid-roll locked down. I'm pretty sure he's basically got the same amount of CBAs as LDU. If not, it's like 1% difference. But he's looking their best player at the moment by far. I'd probably say most impactful by far, because you got Sheasel, who's looking pretty good as well. I think he is a solid 98 plus averaging player at minimum. I don't think he's going to go 98. I think that's the lowest he can go, and I think he can go and keep averaging 105. Especially as a forward, he's going to get mid. He's going to get mid DPP as well. So it'll be good for the buy rounds. You can switch him around. You might as well get him now while he was still cheap-ish. Obviously, last week was the time to get him if you could, because I'm pretty sure he was around 316k or something. So he's jumped up about 60k this week. I think this is the last time you can get him at his cheapest-ish. Because I think going forward, you're going to be paying 400, 450k for someone who you could have got a lot cheaper. So definitely jump on Tom Powell if you didn't get him last week, and if you can this week. With Billings, a trade out option, it's only 70k to Tom Powell, so that's definitely something you could do. Could be that Sexton down to a Darcy, and then you get Billings up to Powell, which is sort of what I was talking about before. So there's definitely ways to get Powell in. If you can, I'd highly recommend it, because he looks to be the real deal and that top 3 forward at the moment. I've got 2 honorable mentions here. The first one is Jordan Clark, 498k defender, averaging 115.3. with a break even of 48, projected to go 111 this week. And if he does, he's going to jump up 29k, which means he jumps over that 500k mark. And the second one is Lachlan Bramble from the Bulldogs, 347k defender mid, averaging 96.3 at the moment. As a break even of 17, projected to go up 74. Projected to go 74 and then make 26k if he does so. I'll put these guys in because I don't think they're trading in targets, unfortunately, but they are averaging really well in their roles. So basically that pod choice if you want to take a punt, but I wouldn't recommend it. So both are having career best seasons off the halfback. They're getting plenty of the ball and being the main drivers out of defense for their sides. My only issue is how long can they keep this scoring up? We've seen Clark, especially Clark before. He started really hot and then he's faded. Obviously, a few more seasons in the legs could have that in endurance to go that whole season. But there's a lot of points being scored in that Freo defense right now, or super coach defenders. You look at Luke Ryan, you look at Clark, you look at Hayden Young, who, yes, he's playing midfield, but he's a defender in super coach. So But those three at the moment, Ryan's going 130 odd, Clark's on a 115. Young has had a slow start, just went 130 though, so you're probably looking at him for another 100 plus average. When do they all, if not all one, when do they stop scoring well? And I think with their roles, Luke Ryan's on kick-ins, might have to play accountable from time to time, yes, but I think his scope, it's basically when he has the ball, he's kicking it long. Hayden Young's got that midfield role. I don't think he's going to lose that unless there's injuries. So unfortunately, if it was to come to one of these guys missing out on Supercoach points, it would be Jordan Clark. And I think out of the three, he's probably the most chance to be inconsistent. Yes, we've seen Young start really slow, but I think he's starting to hit his straps, and I think he'll be a lot more consistent going forward. Where I think Clark potentially has that chance to drop, your 70s here and there, and if he's not scoring 130s, his average is, it's going to fluctuate. His price is going to go up and down, up and down. So that's why I don't think he's an option. But as I said, if you want to take a punt, why not? He's scoring really well at the moment. As for Bramble, he's the only thing about Bramble is Ed Richards is out. Now, he has scored okay with Richards in, but that may affect his output when he comes back. I believe it was a concussion that Richards was out for. So I think he should be back this week, depending on the turnaround. I'm not exactly sure, but if it's not this week, it's the week after. The other consideration for these two especially is, can they be a top 8 to 10 defender? I don't see him being top 6. Can they be top 8 to 10 in the defensive line? Honestly, I think they can both go 90 to 95 at best. Which I think rules them just out of top 10. I think, I think Bramble could really drop off. I think Clark will be around that top 10. I think he might drop to 12, 13, if I'm being honest. But Bramble, I'm really worried about, and think he might lose a role and might be put somewhere else potentially. So I don't think they're top 10, definitely not top 6, but 8 to 10. Clark maybe. So if you didn't jump on them early, if you didn't start with them, or you didn't get them after their first price rise, then I don't really see a point of bringing them in. And I think that'll be a wasted trade, because you're just basically, you're either sideways in like a Himmelberg to one of these guys, or potentially, a Jaden Short. You're trading to these guys, but basically the same price, could basically give the same output. It's a wasted trade. If you trade them in and they don't work out, you're trading them back out. So you've wasted 2 trades there. So that's why I don't think they are trade in targets, but I wanted to give them a mention because they are scoring well and people are starting to look towards them. But that's what I sort of feel like is going to pan out and to happen. So I'd probably stay away. But if you want to take a punt on Clark, I'd probably take a punt on him if I had to. All right, and lastly, we're going to move on to the captains and vice captains for this round. So a sort of difference this week is I've still gone Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in that order. I've named them in their time slots, so it's a bit easier to follow. But at the end, I'm going to give my top 5 VCs for this week, and then my top 5 captains. So I think all of these have the scope to be vice captains or captains, but I'm going to give you my top 5 at the end. So make sure you listen at the end for those because they could help you out. So Thursday night, so these will be VC options. First game is Crows versus the D's. I've got Max GAWN. He's got a career average of 112 against the Crows. In his last 3 games against them, he's got 120, 100, 124, which isn't too bad at all. So we saw what he could do last week. Absolutely tore the game to shreds, 177 super coach points, went nuts. He does have a tougher matchup with Rob. Or for those who don't know Rob, it's Riley O'Brien. He's a tougher opponent in the tap outs, being that bigger body. It's going to be a bit harder to move him and out power him. He also does have a big tank like Max GAWN, so they'll try and push each other forward and make them a bit more accountable. So it could be a very tough game for GAWN, but he has a 3-round average of 150, so you'd be stupid not to consider him as a VC option. Next is his teammate Christian Petrarca, who has a career average of 106 versus the Crows. He's gone 119, 189, 116 in his last 3. He went 189 2 games ago, which is the last time he played at Adelaide Oval. And he has the potential to tear the Crows midfield into pieces with his explosiveness and potential to push forward and hit the scoreboard. Obviously, you have Matt Crouch in there, who has been their best midfielder so far. You got Led and Dawson, who Dawson hasn't hit his stride yet, and Led is starting to work into it a little bit. Petrarca is you can't tackle him. He's too strong, and he's too explosive, especially out of the contest. And we know he can go forward, kick 2 to 3 goals if he wants to. So he's definitely a option for our VCs. Next, I've put these 2 together. It's Rory Lobb and Jordan Dawson. Both have averaged well in the previous 3 outings against the D's. They would be more of your pod VC options in this game. They both have the potential to get off the chain and score highly. So that's why I've put them in. I prefer the D's guys over them, but you'd be silly to rule them completely out. Next is your Friday games. Lions versus the Roos. So these are vice captain options as well. First is Harry Sheasel. He's only played the 1 game against the Lions where he scored 100 super coach points, but at the moment he's averaging 113 and he could easily go 130 plus in that main distributor role off half back. They want to get the ball in his hands, and they look to be doing that as much as they can, and he is seeing plenty of the ball. So I think Sheasel is a very good VC option. For the Lions, you've got Josh Dunkley and Lockie Neal. I've put them both in the same category as I did with Led and Dawson. We can't ignore how bad the Roos are, and they have a very young midfield, which means one of these, if not both, these guys could go 140. I did have here Neil maybe managed with an ankle issue, but he's gotten the all clear to play this round. So if you have any of these guys, I think they could definitely go big against the North Melbourne midfield. Next is Port versus the Bombers. You got Zach Merritt, who averages 112 against Port. In his last 3, he's gone 168, 106, and 130. He loves playing Port, and he's currently averaging 130, and he has the scope to do it again. You might have to be careful of Willem Drew, and he might be a bit accountable for Zach Merritt, and might tag him, which Drew has done successfully in that tagging role. And more frustrating for the players is he tags them and stops them, but then he gets his own ball. He's a tackling machine, so could find it a bit hard for Merritt to score this week. But going off past history and the way Merritt's playing at the moment, he could definitely go big this week. Next up is Zach Butters, who has a career average of 106 versus the Bombers. He's gone 109, 125, and 104 in his last three. He's also averaging 130 at the moment, and he can explode at any moment. Bombers aren't the greatest side going around, which could see plenty of points come Butters' way. It'd be interesting to see how that affects him with Horn Francis back in. Wines is obviously out, as I said before. Horn Francis in. It shouldn't affect him too much. Potentially, that might mean Horn Francis might be the guy getting the ball first and then handballing out to Butters, which could be rewarding and something a little bit different to what I've seen the last couple of weeks. So I think Butters is definitely an option. Next is Dan Houston, who has a career average of 116 versus the Bombers. He's gone 156, 122, and 120 in his last three. He loves playing the Bombers, and he loves playing at Adelaide Oval. He's a great pod choice for those who own him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 150 this week. Bombers game plan, yes, they won last week, but I don't think it's a great one, and I think Houston will see plenty of the ball. He's on kick-ins. They want to get him the ball so he can make those tough kicks, get those score involvements. It could be a big one. So I highly rate Dan Houston this week. As we move to the Saturday games, these are vice captain or captain options, depending on what you're doing on the Thursday and Friday games. So first one is Eagles versus the Swans. No surprise, I've got Isaac Heaney here. He's averaging 139 at the moment, and he's tearing opposing midfields to pieces. Playing against the Eagles could be another monster score. I said before, Adams is out for another 1 to 2 weeks anyway, so he's not going to lose any CBAs. And he could just absolutely monster the Eagles. So I think he could be a great option this week. Next, I've put him together again, and that's Brodie Grundy and Errol Goulden. With no decent ruck, Grundy could absolutely dominate if he doesn't give away any soft frees, which we've seen him do in the early rounds. And I can see him going big and rewarding those Grundy holders, which I'm not one of them. I jumped off, but if you held him, he could be a big VC or C option this week. And for Goulden, it's similar to Heaney with how poor the Eagles midfield is, except Goulden is a little bit out of form. You know, he had that one big game 2 weeks ago, but this could be the matchup that he needs just to reignite that flame and get some momentum rolling. Next game is Freo versus the Blues. You've got Caleb Sarong. So he typically doesn't score well against the Blues, but he's averaging 145 at the moment. Looks to be a different player this year. Obviously, it's a tougher matchup. You got Cripps and Hewitt in there as those bigger body mids. You got Chera, who's looking good this year, and then a few youngsters rolling through. Hewitt might go to him and be a bit more accountable, similar to what Willem Drew could do with Zach Merritt. But it's hard to ignore a guy who's averaging 145. So Sarong could be an option. Next is Luke Ryan, who's averaging 140, which can't be forgotten. He scored 168 last time he played him. The only thing that's worrying me this week about Luke Ryan is with the big two key forwards of Carlton in Mackay and Curnow, Ryan may be used a little bit more as an accountable defender, which could see a lower score this week. He's still going to be on the kicking, so he's still going to get the kicking points. But if like Josh Draper's getting absolutely smoked, they might look to Ryan, and Ryan in that role isn't the greatest for Supercoach. He's not really that Sicily type who is going to take plenty of intercept marks. He's going to look to lock him down, which means he won't find the ball as much. So that's my only negative about Ryan this week is he could be accountable. Next is the smoky pick, and that is Luke Jackson. I think if Mark Pitternet isn't brought back into the side, I think Jackson could go absolutely massive with a favourable matchup against Tom DeConning. Just in the fact, like they're both very athletic, but I think Jackson is a bit more explosive in his movements and has a bit more of a higher vertical. So I think he could really dominate the continent this week, and he can be a big presence up forward. He can push him forward, and out muscle him there. So if Pitnet's not playing, I think Luke Jackson is a great VC or C option. But if Pitnet's in, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game for Luke Jackson. Next is the Dogs versus the Cats, and the first one is Big Tim English. Reece Stanley did not play last week, and Toby Conway played his second game as the young emerging ruck. In saying that, Chris Scott said that Conway isn't a guarantee to play every week going forward. He is still young. He has a lot of development, so he could be in and out of the side. So just be wary of that. English could have had an absolute field day last week, but he decided in the last quarter wanted a bit of a rest, and they gave Sam Darcy an opportunity to play a bit more ruck. But in saying that, if it was a closer game, he could have gone 150 easy. And I think even with Reece Stanley in, I think he beats him around the ground. So definitely look at Tim English. Next is the Bond, Marcus Bontempelli. He was rested with an ankle injury last week, rested in the form of he played full forward. He was still able to scrape 110. If he's fit, we know what Bont can do. He can easily go 130 plus, and we can see a great score from him, especially in such a tight contested game that this should be. But if he's still carrying that ankle, I don't think he's an option this week. Next is Tom Stewart. He's gone 124 and 127 in his last two versus the Dogs. I say it every week. We know what he can do, what we expect from Stewart, and the role he plays in that Cats defense. Might be a bit tougher, similar to Luke Ryan, with all the height in Dogs forward line. You got Jamara, you got Norton, and you'll have either Darcy or Lobb, and then you'll have English resting there as well. So he might have to be a bit more accountable this week, which might not work in his favor, or it could go the other way, and he could see plenty of the ball come his way. He could out position and take a whole bunch of intercept marks like we saw Sicily and Flushing do the last couple of weeks. So definitely a VCC choice there. Next is Tom Liberatore, and he'll be the last for this game. He's gone 124, 122, 123 in his last three. He got bevoed last week. As I said early in the pod, he got subbed out and finished on 98, which he got in the first three quarters. He's a known scorer and typically does well against the Cats. Being so tightly contested, I could see him smashing out a 130 plus score if he plays the full game. He's a tackling machine, contested ball. He does all the right things. So I think he could be a good pod choice there. As we move to the Sunday games. Sorry, I just lost it. All right, first up, and these are all captain options. So first up is the Suns versus the Giants. You got Tom Green, who averages 119 versus the Suns. He went 147 in his last game. Fresh off the bye means he's well rested to go absolutely insane, in my opinion. Dimmer doesn't usually use a tagger, which means Green could look to do what he has done so far this season and just absolutely be that bull and just break through packs. If anyone was to go to him, it would be Took Miller to play that defensive running midfielder, which he did earlier in his career. I don't think he'll stop Tom Green too much, but I think Green go absolutely massive this week. Speaking of Took, he's the next player. He hasn't scored well as of late against the Giants, but that was due to injuries and playing different roles to what he was used to. He's fit and he's got his role back, which could see him go back to these big scores that we are used to seeing. Definitely a pod captain choice and a bit of a risk, but there's a lot of people out there who like to take risk, and if it pays off, it could be very handy. Next is Lockie Whitfield. As stated before, he has his half-back role again and went 133 last time around. He'll see plenty of ball this week, I feel, in kick-ins and just people trying to give him the ball. So he has the potential to go big once again. Next up, we've got the Tigers versus the Saints. So first is Nick Vlasic, who I spoke about earlier, has 122 average this season. As I said before, he's on majority kick-ins. He's intercepting beasts. He had 13 marks. Tigers aren't a great side, so there's going to be plenty of ball going down into that defense, which means he has the most opportunity to get the ball and score well. Pretty sure he went at 100% disposal efficiency on the weekend as well, which contributed to his massive score. So if you're going to bring him in, you could put him in as a pod captain this week. Just proceed with caution, though. He may not be able to keep this Supercoach scoring up for long. I mean, he could easily drop a 70. Next is Jack Steele. It's a known fact that the Tigers midfield leak Supercoach points, and we're still fit and firing at the moment. I reckon he's safe for a 125 plus score. So if your VC doesn't work out and you don't want to take too much of a risk, I think if you have Jack Steele, you could do much worse and put the captain on him. And the last game is the Pies versus the Hawks, which I think Nick Dacos has to be talked about. So he was moved back into defense last week, and we saw a different Collingwood side, similar to what we saw last year with all their success. With McRae, he might want to keep Dacos in that role just because as a team they looked a lot better. They had that high disposal guy starting off the chain. There was less turnovers, less chance for a counter attack, which we know Dacos can score very well. Obviously, it caps his ceiling a little bit. Playing in the midfield, he has the chance to go absolutely huge, where I think he's capped at about 140, 150 in this defensive role. It could prove me wrong, but I think in the midfield, he could push 180s, depending on the team. The only other issue is possibly a Finn McGuinness tag, who's gotten the best of him. Definitely last season. But McGuinness played VFL last week, and if not the week before, hasn't looked great. So they might not bring him back, which if they don't, Dacos could be captain threat this week. But if he is named, I would tread with caution on this one, because he has been shut down before by McGuinness. And lastly, James Sicily. We were all worried about Sick Dog with all the injuries in that Hawks defense. But since round 2, he has looked a bit more comfortable and is scoring better. Last year, he went 166 against the Pies later in the season, and he marked everything that came into that defensive 50. I think he had like 10 marks a half time or something. It was ridiculous. He could go absolutely massive again. And if you're one that has Sicily, he could be the biggest pod for a captaincy choice this week. So that's all of them. It's definitely a big one, the VC and C. So just before we end, I will let you guys know my top 5 vice captains and captains for this week. So my top 5 vice captains, starting at number 5 would be Max GAWN. The reason I don't have him higher is I think it's just a tougher matchup with Rory O'Brien. But he has the potential to score well like last week. So I've got him at number 5. At number 4, I've got Dan Houston as a VC. I just think the team he's playing against and the venue, Adelaide Oval, where he loves to play, he definitely has the potential to score big. I was 50-50 on having him 4th or 3rd this week, but I've put him in 4th just because number 3 is Christian Petrarca, and I just think the goal threat could be the main difference this week. So, if they both get 30 touches, they're going to score roughly the same, but Petrarca has that ability to push forward and kick 2 to 3 goals, which I think puts a 130, 140 game to 170 plus games. So that's why I've got him in at number 3. Number 2, I've got Zach Merritt. Just the history. He scores well, and of late has scored very well. He's averaging 130. I think he is a safe VC option. That's why I've put him in at number 2. And number 1 is Isaac Heaney playing West Coast. I'll be pretty silly not to put him in at number 1. So Isaac Heaney is the top VC option this week. As we move to the captain options, at number 5, I've got Libba. What was it? It was 124, 122, 123 in his last 3. I think you can basically book him in safely as a captain to get you 125 around there, which is a good captain score if he doesn't get bevoed and subbed out. Number 4, I've got English. Again, I could have had him 3rd here, but I've put him in at 4. Reece Stanley, it doesn't matter. English is going to score big this week, I feel. And I've got the confidence that he will score more than Bond this week. Same with Libba. So English as a C comes in at number 4. Number 3 is Nick Dacos. Just the sense if Finn McGuinness doesn't play, he could go 140 plus. That's all I'm basing it off. If McGuinness is playing, then I don't think Dacos makes this list. But I'm going to take a risk in my rankings and put him at number 3. Number 2, Isaac Heaney. So he was the top VC option. I think he's the 2nd best captain option if you want to do a VC earlier. Playing the Eagles, simple as that. I've just said what I think he can do, and I can see him going big again. And number 1 is Tom Green. It's hard not to pick Tom Green. Playing against Gold Coast, who probably won't tag him. These guys usually have a good contested battle. Tom Green could go 150 again. I just have a bit more confidence with his ceiling than I do with Heaney. I think Heaney's more that 140 to 150 cap on his ceiling, where I think Green could go 180 depending on the day. So that's why I've got Green there. So just to quickly recap, top 5 VCs would be GAWN, Houston, Petrarca, Merritt, and Heaney as number 1. And top captains would be Libba, English, Dacos, Heaney, and Tom Green. And that's going to do it for today. That is the end of the podcast. I have decided that I'm going to do my team reveal in a separate video. So So that's just going to be the podcast for tonight. It seemed like a long one again, so a lot of information in there. So make sure you go back and you listen to it a few times, especially just the sections that you're um, unsure on, if that's the trade out, trade in, or the captain options that themselves. But thank you all for listening. Don't forget to hit us up on Twitter or X at Breakevens Pod, on Facebook, The Breakevens, on Instagram. We're new on Instagram. Give us a follow, The Breakevens, and of course over here on YouTube, The Breakevens. Like, follow, subscribe. It really helps us out. And we love interacting with you guys as much as we can. So that's it for this podcast. I'll be back next week with a whole bunch more of information for you all. So good luck for round 4. And until next time, it's bye for now.